I'm Steve Hopkins. I'm the Director for Customer Success for Yammer across Australia and New Zealand. And part of my role is to help customers be successful in rolling out Yammer and getting value from it, in changing the way that they work. And not only sort of rolling out the tech, but in certainly changing the way they work and proceeding to help change their cultures to be more responsive. About a year ago, I was actually over in London and I caught up with Mike Graffam, who's our worldwide head for customer success, and we shared a coffee in a little cafe in like this dingy street in London. And I kind of had that idea. I had this idea that we were missing a trick by not sharing more of our customer stories in a better way. And I think that was represented by a lot of other people in the business as well. It wasn't something that I had just come to. It was, we were beginning to see that the conversations that went best for us were where we shared really good, tangible, concrete customer examples. And so I raised that with Mike and said, we should do some training around storytelling. And Mike's words then were, it's not a problem yet. We need to, let's see how it goes and start trying to do the simple thing. What's the simplest thing that we could do to get on that journey? And so we said, yeah, okay, that's a really good thought. Before we do the training, we'll think about how we can do that. So what we started to do was encourage people to begin talking about, sharing the stories they were seeing just in any format on our Yammer network. We had globally people begin to talk and share, customer success stories in a very unstructured way. And we also began to kind of have a bash at collecting them in a story bank. But I think from that time to probably just before we did the training with Anecdote, it was very, there was a difference in the way stories were told. Some people were very good at it, some others could have been better at it. And also there was a sort of natural tendency to remove some of the details that helped translate the story the most. So we recognised that we probably just needed some help in creating a single framework that we could all use across the world. We're a global team. There's 40 to 50 CSMs across the world, from New York, San Francisco, London, and now in Singapore as well. And so we recognised that we needed a consistent, holistic framework to help us sort of all get on the same page about how we told stories. And so that was when we came and did the training. So our experience of the training was really interesting. So we had, because we weren't new to the idea that storytelling was valuable, we had done a really good job, I think, across the business of everybody recognising the value of it and trying to get better at it. But it wasn't a channeled energy. We weren't trying to get better in any one particular framework. We were just trying to get better at storytelling. So I think before the training, we had a lot of people not questioning the value of storytelling, but questioning why this framework, or why, why this time, or why now. And certainly that was kind of a thing that we had, but it was definitely wrapped in that positivity around, fantastic, we're finally going to get the chance to understand how to do this and to sort of use some nows. And so, then we kicked off in London. The training kicked off in London. We'd organised it. We worked with Mark to kind of book in the sessions in, we had him flying from London to our New York office, to our San Francisco office, and then back to Australia to run the one for the team here. And he did a phenomenal job in just organising that. He came to, at the last minute, I'd forgotten that we had the New York office, which was a big miss. So at the very last minute, Mark was able to kind of twist his schedule around to be able to do London, New York, San Francisco, which we were immensely grateful for, just his agility and responsiveness there. And then we went from there. When we started the training, the day of the training, the morning in London, it was scheduled to start at 9 a.m. I got in there at about 8 a.m. To be a bit early and just get through my inbox or do whatever I needed to do. And Mark arrived early. And he actually arrived, we were in the stairwell together as we were walking up the stairs, and he had already been met and greeted by Emma, who's one of our team there. And it was fantastic. He actually sort of shared with me after the fact that he just felt so welcome when he arrived. Our London office is really good like that. So Emma welcomed him in, and Kate then, who'd organised the training in London, welcomed him in as well, and we have breakfast on offer there and things like that, so gave him a feed, and then we moved into having the session at about 9 o'clock. And at 9 o'clock, the room was full. Everyone from the London office had managed to get there. We'd only missed a few people because of annual leave, which was a shame, but that's unfortunately the reality of those things. But the energy in the room was really ready to sort of learn this, but also, we were sort of all a bit unsure about where it was about to go. And so, it was just terrific to sort of have Mark lead us through that. He got up and shared his own story, which I think right away set the tone for the day, and really just helped us, everybody in the room, and myself included, kind of relax into it and enjoy it from there. On the day of the training, because we had come from that world where we had all been trying the storytelling thing, I think people had a lot of different models in their head. They had a lot of different ways that they liked to do storytelling, and they had a lot of different ways that they'd seen it done. And I think the big value came in that first sort of, after Mark had kind of led us through his perspective of storytelling and the anecdote perspective of storytelling, and then jumped into the relevant statements, or the personal storytelling. So why am I here and why am I talking to you? And that was the first activity we did, and we broke out, and at that first breakout point it was really quite exciting to see everyone kind of getting into it and getting into the activity and getting into the task of sharing with each other the different stories, and struggling with it as well, which I think it was good, because people recognised this is a skill that I've really appreciated and known about for a long time, but not a muscle I've built yet. And I think from that point on, the rest of the training was really valuable, and people were able to really revel in that strength building. For me personally, the biggest impact the training has had is a couple of things. The first thing is just how much we've come together as a team around storytelling. So because we did it with our global team and the framework is now consistent, it's really easy to work with each other to help each other get better at storytelling, because you know not just how to improve the act of seeking a story, but once you've got it, how to polish that up and turn it into something that really sings and can be communicated across countries. So whereas previously I might have just told Australian stories and my other colleagues might have told European or American stories, we're now able to kind of share stories much more across locations, because it kind of follows the same format now. And that really happened for me. Like the moment was definitely after the training. We did all of that in a private group within a Yammer network. So we had Mark in there and Sean in there from Anecdote, and we sort of had the we had the ability to talk to you guys about what it is that we were trying, but most of all it was about us talking to each other about the stories we were sharing. And probably my favourite moment was Ursula, who's one of our CSMs in Central America, had a presentation that she was going to be giving to a global sales team of ours. Really big meeting, workshop, they fly everyone in for these things, and she had a couple of hours to talk to them. And she actually workshopped that in her entire storytelling component of that bit in that private group with Mark, with the rest of us sort of polishing up the story that she wanted to tell. And at the end of the day, she gave that talk, and it was the only talk all day where people put their laptops down and kind of listened along. So for me, that was like one of the big success stories. And the fact that we got to see that, do that together, share together, working on that story and refining the timestamp and the people that are involved and the way that she delivered that emotively was really powerful. Yeah, I use it in every meeting now. So in every meeting, the general framework is we figure out where our customer's at, help them understand where they are at, and then and ask them to help us understand their business. And then at that point, for me as a CSM, it's a process of trying to match a story to that person's situation currently, and kind of really trying to do that well, so that they can understand where they could possibly take it, and also for me to understand that that's where they want to take it. So I use the storytelling skills in every meeting, but I also use the story listening skills really heavily as well. So just learning. I was actually just in a meeting earlier today where somebody within the meeting said, "Oh yeah, we tried that before," and so instantly, whereas it might have been a comment where I might have let it slide, or perhaps asked, "Oh yeah, how did that go?" Instead, I asked, "Oh, when did you try that?" "Oh yeah, who was it that was trying to do that?" And out of that, for those questioning that kind of linked to the timestamps and everything else, he was able to share with me the story, the example of when this had last happened and this initiative had last been tried, why it failed, who had been involved in that not being successful, and what some of the reasons were, which was much more valuable than me just going, "Oh yeah, how did that go?" pre the training. So that's certainly where I use it every meeting I have.